So today we're finally going to get started on the Datsun project, and we're going to replace a rusty trunk floor. So here you can see what I've got to work with. Obviously, the spare tire well is a low spot, so any water is going to collect there. We've got rust holes through it. There's also just a normal body hole there that's missing a plug. I don't really care about having trunk space in this. This is primarily going to be a race car and just a drive around town, have fun with cars. So I'm not worried about carrying a spare tire. I'm not worried about having a lot of trunk space. So what I think I'm going to do is, you can see this lip all the way around the spare tire well, which is good and solid. I think I'm going to start with, I'm going to cut the spare tire well out, cut a piece of sheet metal in that fills in this area, and then we'll just have a flat floor. Of course, to do that, the fuel tank's right there, and it of course has fuel in it, and I really don't want to weld that close to it. So I think the first task is get that fuel tank out of the way. Well, the tank's in good shape. I'm not sure if I'm going to reuse it. I might end up going with a fuel cell for proper racing certified fuel cell, but if I need it, this is still in good shape. Well, I just had an unexpected break. The camera wasn't rolling, but I was crawling under the car, and as you can see, I have a nice large band-aid on my head. Let me get up close so you can see my bald head with the large band-aid. Be careful when you do stuff like this. It's amazing how stupid stuff happens. I was crawling underneath just to make sure I could see the backside of where I was cutting, and I've got the car up on wheel dollies that have corners on them, of course, and I jammed my head right into that, and a little bit of blood. Had to run into the house. Luckily, Jane's good with things like that. She got some gauze on there. We got the bleeding stopped. It's not bad or anything. It's just it hurt, and I bled all over. So I'm gonna get back to work, but carefully now. Okay, got the tire well all cut out. For most of it, you can see there's that lip, so I was able to run the edge of the plasma cutter around there. It leaves just enough lip that gives it some shape. Of course, a flat piece of sheet metal really doesn't have much rigidity, but with this lip, you can see that keeps it nice and rigid. I can lay the new sheet metal in here. I'll probably try to run some beads in the new sheet metal to keep it nice and rigid. I didn't have that lip around towards the front of the car, so I need to clean that up a little bit, and I'll probably try to cut that a fairly straight line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a new piece of sheet metal that's just slightly oversized, lay it in there, and then climb under there, hopefully without scratching my head again, but I'm going to climb under there and I can mark it from the inside. And by the way, what I hit my head on was that corner right there of that wheel dolly. Not terribly sharp, and it's not like jagged rusty metal, but it was enough to cut me. It hurt. Okay, here we can see I've got the piece rough cut. I just cut it oversized with the electric shears. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to climb underneath it carefully this time so I don't jam my head into something. And I'm going to trace the inside of the cutout, and then I can cut it just slightly oversized. Actually, I'll cut it still fairly oversized, be a little bit conservative so I can kind of sneak up on it. And you know, it's always much easier to remove metal than to add metal. So I've rough cut it out with the plasma cutter, and I've got the rough shape, so now I just need to come in with some hand tin snips and finalize the cut. So after a good bit of hand trimming, I've got it fitting pretty good. So since it's a flat panel, obviously you have no rigidity in a flat panel. So I'm going to try out my new tool and try to roll a couple beads into this to give it some rigidity. I need to try to do this without bending the panel all up. Kind of clunking. Something's loose. Okay, almost there, and stop. Okay, got a couple beads in there, which stiffens it up a good bit, so it shouldn't wobble as much. And I'm happy enough with the fit, so I think I'm going to weld it in. All right, well, it's not pretty, but at least it is a start. We've, I spent a few weeks tearing the car down. It's nice to have a new piece of metal welded in. The welds aren't great. The metal is a little bit thin on the car. It is an old Datsun. They didn't use the thickest metal. And I really should have spent a little more time cleaning up around it. It was pretty rusty. It's kind of hard to weld to the rusty metal. I cleaned just the lip, but there are a few rusty spots that I had to weld through and a little bit of paint. So I'll try to take more time doing that. At least we're moving forward instead of backwards with some new metal. I'm going to continue doing this over the next few weeks. I'll be shooting some more episodes, so hit the subscribe button if you're interested in seeing more. And until then,